Cause I got a really big team, and they need some really big rings. They need some really nice things. Better be coming with no strings. Better be coming with no strings. We need some really nice things. We need some really big rings. I got a really big team.
I got a really big team. Welcome back to the Weston and Eliav Show with Eliav Gabay here on Blaze Radio, 1330 a.m. Thank you as always for spending your Monday here with us, and happy Labor Day to you and yours out there. By the way, support for Blaze Radio is provided by the Stratosphere Casino Hotel and Tower in Las Vegas. Everybody knows he's the king of the hill. Get ready for Roger Klein and the Peacemakers live in Las Vegas, poolside at the Stratosphere Elation Pool. For tickets, visit stratospherehotel.com. Call toll-free 800-99-TOWER. Party poolside with Roger Klein and the Peacemakers live in Las Vegas. Weston and Eliav Show with Eliav Gabay, Blaze Radio, 1330 a.m. It is an honor to have our next guest in studio with us. Eliav, and this guy knows a thing or two about basketball, doesn't he?
All right, now we're all good to
Yeah,
go.
we're good there. Nice.
Yes, he does. My man, Skye Merida.
Mm-hmm. What's up,
Skye?
What's up, Skye? How you doing, bro?
Yo, I am so honored to be on the Weston and Eliav. Like, I'm going to go back home, cross this off my bucket list. I mean, I still got some things, but this is like, thank you so much. It's a great honor.
Harley, do we have the tissues in here?
Wow.
Oh, we need to write that down. We need to get the tissues in here. Skye, good to have you on the show, man.
Good to be here, bro.
Honored.
Thank you for coming on, man.
All right, man. Let's just get into it. NBA this offseason, I mean, especially for you, has been somewhat of heart-stopping, just nerve-wracking. Like, you couldn't believe some things that are happening, I'm sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of moves for the Celtics, this offseason. Really starting with the number one pick. We had gotten the number one pick, and I was gearing up to basically, oh my gosh, we're going to get Markelle Fultz. This is going to be really cool. And then,
then the world
basically
turns.
a couple weeks later, a few weeks, I guess, we find out we're not having the number one pick. We just traded it to the Philadelphia Sixers, and I was like, why are we doing this? Ultimately, we got Jason Tatum, who I think personally is going to be a really good player. He's a very natural scorer. So ultimately, it did work out, but I did not predict that we would get Kyrie Irving. Like, that was something that did not even cross my mind.
So after all the crazy changes, you got Gihei now, you got Kyrie, no more Isaiah Thomas. That I know you probably didn't foresee that before in this offseason, but you feeling any better, worse, or kind of the same about this team's chances to make it to the finals?
I mean, so losing Isaiah was sort of bittersweet just from a fan's perspective, just because of, what he did playing with, just right after his sister, had died. And
that's unbelievable.
And he, scoring 53 points in a playoff game on what would have been his sister's birthday. I mean, he's as tough as it comes. And I would say, like, he's basically as good of a player as a 5'9" player can be, really. I mean, he's amazing, player. Seems like it, I actually met him. He was kind enough to take a picture with me. Good guy. But at the same time, I've always been a very big Kyrie Irving fan. And the scariest thing about Kyrie Irving is that he is yet to reach his full potential. He's only 25 years old. He's really only entering his prime. So really, I think the best is yet to come for him.
Now, I have a question about Danny Ainge, but before I get to that, I'm just going to straight up ask you, who won the trade?
Wow. I mean,
question.
That's a very tough question. I guess my initial answer is to say both teams won. I mean, it was a good trade all around.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, if you're going to get something for Kyrie, and it looks like they really just needed to trade Kyrie, otherwise the chemistry wouldn't be the same. So if you're going to trade Kyrie, this is a good trade to get. I mean, you got Isaiah Thomas, an all-star, and somebody that averaged 29 last year. You get Jay Crowder, who I think is going to desperately help a defense that, desperately needs it.
And a bench.
Exactly.
Reloads the bench a bit.
More depth.
Yeah.
But, especially against a team that's trying to compete with the Warriors, you need people that can actually defend all those shooters and all those great playmakers. So having Jay Crowder there definitely helps. And most importantly, the Brooklyn pick. I mean, having that number one pick in case LeBron James leaves, who knows, for LA next year. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen. But
me neither.
but if he does, then at least you have somebody to try to take the reins.
Right, and I'd say also with LeBron, the only way to try and beat him is perhaps take away his sidekick. So we'll see how that goes. I also think it was a pretty good move.
Yeah, exactly. I think Kyrie, and I said this on Twitter, basically on the Cavs, he was Robin. Now with the Celtics, he's Nightwing. If you're, follow superheroes, basically, which means I think he's ready to lead his own team. Like he's determined, and I think he's ready for the challenge, learning under LeBron.
I want to see that fire. I want to see it.
Absolutely. Let's transition, Skye. Let's transition to the Suns. Talk a little bit of Phoenix Suns basketball. Josh Jackson comes in. I mean, nobody really expected Jackson to fall to number 4, honestly. I was expecting Tatum to be at 4. I mean, we both agreed. Me and Eliav were cordially agreeing that it was going to be Tatum on draft night. But Josh Jackson comes in. Defense is his specialty with Devin Booker, who's just, we know what he can do on offense. The future is just bright, Skye. It's unbelievable. So for me, I don't expect them to make the playoffs by any stretch of the imagination. But what is a realistic expectation for them this year, do you think?
Improvement, but not, like you said, I agree with you that they are not a playoff team, but I think that they are very close to developing into a playoff team. I don't think it's going to be too much longer as long as all their young players develop correctly and efficiently. So you already said Devin Booker is already, in my opinion, very close to being a star in this league. If some people would say if he was on a better team, he'd already be considered an all-star or something like that. But Devin Booker, we've already seen how good he can be. Obviously, dropping 70 points in a game when he's not even old enough to drink a beer, and he's basically he's already proven himself in that regard. And then you have Marquise Chris, who I think is a great young talent, very athletic, still a lot of room to grow, very raw, but still I think the ceiling. Is the roof. Yeah, exactly. To quote MJ, the ceiling is the roof. And he's got a lot of potential to grow, and he sort of reminds me of a young Mari Stoudemire. I'm not saying he's going to be that, but he definitely compares, in my opinion, just in terms of potential, he compares favorably to Amari. But and as you mentioned,
Phoenix would love that.
Yeah. As you mentioned, Josh Jackson, the only bad thing it's not even a bad thing. Just don't let him play baseball, because that first pitch I don't know if you guys saw it.
I was there.
His first pitch was one of the worst I've seen. It was all over the place, but luckily he's not getting paid to play baseball.
That was worse than 50 Cent's first pitch. That was, both of those.
Those are really,
I don't know.
Two, that's
50 was pretty awful. He wasn't
pretty
even
bad.
in this right zip code.
Yeah, the two of them and John Wall's first pitch, all of them are bad. but luckily he's not getting paid to play baseball. He's getting paid to play basketball. I think he's a very, very talented player, somebody that's, I think has superstar potential.
Transitioning, let's move to Houston and talk about the Rockets for a little bit. CP3 comes in. That's a really good deal, in my opinion, for Houston. But the question, Skye and Eliav, is James Harden moving back to the 2. And because CP3, he's the number 1, he's the point guard, he's the floor general. And then last year it was Harden at the point guard position. We saw what happened. We both doubted that Houston was even going to make the playoffs. And they ended up going in there being the 3 seed, and Harden took complete control of the point. So what the question is, Skye, is with him moving back to the 2, I see this as a red flag. Do you?
Yeah, it's... I don't know. It's difficult to say just because Harden has been able to have success at the 2 guard, but last year was his best year, and he was basically playing the point guard position. And he was, obviously flourishing in that. He led the league in assists. So now you add CP3, who is a tremendous player in his own right. But the fact that you have 2 of those guys trying to create the offense, I don't know how that's going to work. And if there's, enough, if they add Melo, I feel like there might not be too many balls enough to around that team. There's just too many ball stoppers. But I think they're going to struggle at first just in terms of their chemistry, but I think they will eventually be very good once it's time for the playoffs. Because talent overrides everything in my opinion.
I'm about to say, when you have great players, usually they can work it out. And my point, and we actually spoke about this last episode as well, my point as to why I think there should be no issues as far as, of course, the beyond the meshing and the chemistry that needs to develop naturally, is because Harden knows what it's like to play next to ball stoppers and to succeed next to ball stoppers. Is this the same Harden? No, he's an evolutionized Harden. He's the next level James
you're
Harden.
talking about when he played with Oklahoma City? Yeah.
But at this point, I still think that he understands that Chris Paul is only going to help him.
Mm-hmm.
And now he doesn't have to worry about distributing as much. So if anything, I think offensively, I'm not saying his numbers will be better because they were just amazing last year, but he might do better as far as points goes because CP3 might just
he's
take
gonna
so
score
much
more.
off of his shoulders.
Absolutely.
No, I agree.
Could go either way, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I asked you this question off air, and we had a good conversation about it, and I wanted everyone else to hear it. If you had to pick one team that no one is really talking about, not too much hype around them, but you expect a surprise, who would it be and why? I'll give you an example. I am going to pick the Bucks because I love Kidd. I love Giannis. I love what they got going there. And maybe Jabari can be healthy.
Healthy Jabari.
Yeah, let's see if he can get healthy. Brogdon coming off, obviously the rookie of the year.
And don't forget Thon Maker. I mean, people forget about Thon Maker, but he has some definitely potential. If everything works out with him, I mean, 7 feet and, the skills that he has, I
was really impressed by them in the playoffs. It goes against Toronto, so whatever. But still, very impressed by them, and they're going to surprise me. What about you, Skye?
I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets, and here's why. So they obviously acquired Paul Millsap in the offseason. I don't think a lot of people expected them to, but that's only going to help Jokic, who's already, obviously, we saw last season, been one of the more, I would say, underappreciated players because he doesn't get a lot of, I guess, publicity. But last year, if you saw him, he was doing a great job and was in the discussion for most improved player.
100%.
And then you also have Jamal Murray, who didn't have as good of a rookie season as I thought he would, but I feel like he has a lot of potential. He's a great shooter and a very natural scorer. And you combine it with those shooters that they have, like Gary Harris, some other guys. I think Denver is looking bright. I think they will be a playoff team, not a high playoff team, but somewhere in that 8-7 seed.
The fact that they have that roster and they have probably one of the best 1-2 punch power forward duos in the league, and we're saying they're at the bottom half of the Western Conference, it's just a testament to how good the Western Conference is.
If they were in the Eastern Conference, they might be pretty good, really good.
Yeah, Weston, what do you think?
Yeah, to answer the question, maybe people are going to disagree with this, but I mean, the New Orleans Pelicans, to me, adding Rajon Rondo at the point guard position, that's an upgrade over Drew Holiday, in my opinion.
Definitely. I agree.
Well, as long as Drew Holiday moves to the 2.
Yeah,
if we're picking who's a better point guard right now, there's no question it's Drew.
So and plus, we already know DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis, for me, those two guys, that's the best 1-2 combo big man in the game.
The two best big men in the league, in my opinion, now.
So that's why I asked a follow-up question to you.
Yeah.
How is that a non-hype team?
Because
they are a hype team. And people know all about them.
I guess right now, because the fact that they finished below the pack last year, and that when DeMarcus Cousins was traded there, a lot of people were like, "Oh, New Orleans is going to make the playoffs now," and they still finished 2 spots out of the playoff spot.
That's people who, to me, you got to understand how adding a superstar works. You need time to match.
Of course,
that time.
Absolutely.
And that's why I've never if they can't make it work, then clearly they just don't mesh.
Mm-hmm.
Because with that much talent and complementary play styles, as far as one guy who loves to post up and kind of float around in DeMarcus Cousins, and then the other guy who likes to play outside in Anthony Davis, but still can go to work inside, obviously, then it should really work out. The only thing they're missing is, there's a joke, the Pelicans, they have all the big men, but they got no wings. And they're the Pelicans, so that's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll see how that goes. It should be interesting. Guys, Skye and I had a disagreement this summer.
Again?
One of several.
Yeah, well, geez, what the heck, guys? Come on.
No, but
where was I when all this was happening?
One of them, well, I was in Israel. One of them was actually something that everyone's going to probably agree with Skye, and I'm definitely on the shorter end of the stick here. But we disagreed on the playoffs last year. And he actually ran a poll, is this the worst playoffs of all time? And I I said
no, it wasn't of all time. I said in recent memory.
Recent memory. Sorry, thank you for correcting me. Sorry. Recent memory. He says probably yes. I say no. Skye, please, you have the floor.
Okay, so to explain myself here, there were just too many blowout games. I know Eliav's argument is going to be that, well, there were some game 6s here, some game 7s and everything. Well, there was only I think a couple of game 7s. There was the Wizards against the Celtics, which, went 7 games. Even though even in that series, there were quite a few blowout games. Now, the first 2 games, or at least game 2 was really good when Isaiah Thomas scored 50 plus, and that was an amazing game. Game 7 was also close, and then obviously the game 6 where John Wall hit that buzzer beater. So that series was really good. But every other series, it was just a bunch of blowouts. So even if it was going to game 6 or games 7, I mean, most of the games weren't close. And obviously I forgot the Jazz and the Clippers. That was also a good series. But if you have 2 good, really good series and competitive series out of an entire postseason, that is a disappointment in my eyes. The NBA Finals, everybody was hyping it up to be one of the best NBA Finals in ever, but it didn't obviously end up living to that. It only went to 5 games. The Warriors won both the first 2 games with ease. Games 3 and 4 were, game 3 was entertaining. Game 4, it was a blowout for the Cavaliers. And game 5, it was so-so. So it was just I felt like it was overall a disappointment.
I honestly, for most people, I'm sure, while, again, I see why you think that. For most people, let's be honest, what did they see? Golden State and Cavs games. That's all they saw. That's most of the series that most people saw. Now, even in those facets, I mean, the series with Indiana, yeah, it was a sweep, but you got to look at the games. The games were still good. Indiana totally blew one, which was that's just going to happen. And that's why they were swept when they had the chance to capitalize and go and win and go 2-1 in the series. But besides that, it was a sweep, but games were still good if you watch them through. Golden State versus Portland, still, there were some decent games in that, even though for the most part it was Golden State winning it handedly. I'll give you that. But Clippers versus Utah, you already said it. We already know how good that series was. That was close.
That was
almost
amazing.
Yeah, that was a very fun series to watch. OKC Houston was 4-1, but we already know that was a very entertaining series just from the fact that we had Russ versus Harden and everything went into that. I was entertained every game watching that. That was the battle for MVP, quote unquote, even though the loser ended up winning MVP.
Yeah, but some of the series you're mentioning basically only went 4 to 5 games. I guess that's the problem.
But you still have to pay attention to each games. That's the problem in your argument. You're not paying attention to the specific games. San Antonio, Memphis, great games. So went to six games, but most of the games there were really compelling. And now, I'm not going to go through every single one because we don't have that kind of time, even though I'd love to. The games the series, let's say that you brought up Washington, Boston. Yeah, there were blowouts, but that's what I liked about it, that you didn't know what to expect each night. One night, one team can blow you out. The other night, the other team can blow you out. You never knew what to expect. Come on, that Bulls-Boston series, that was hilarious. The team took 2 away, and then the other team took 2 away as well. That is exciting to me, that you don't know what to expect at any moment. A blowout could happen. It could be a close game, and that's what I was super impressed with. Milwaukee taking 2 away from the Raptors. I mean, I don't think a lot of people expected that. So yes, outside of the Golden State Cavs series where you pretty much knew who was going to win, I thought it was a very exciting series and a playoffs and a very underrated one at that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but in my opinion, in my estimation, there has to be 2 things in order to be a great playoffs. In my opinion, one, the series has got to go 6 or 7 games, and then 2, it's got to be competitive. That's just, I guess I'm a little picky in that sense. I want to see really close games, and then I also want to see competitive long series, because if you have, you brought up the Pacers, you're right. All 4 games were competitive, but at the end of the day, they got swept.
So I'm saying you got to have both.
Yeah.
You got to have both. See, for me personally, I'd say when you look at the details, I'm kind of more the detail-oriented kind of thing, that when you look down and you really see the specifics, to me, it was like you said, it was competitive. Yeah, the long series didn't come in that one, but in the other ones, the longer series did come. So that's why I mentioned outside of those series too. But Weston, you haven't had a chance to chime in, so go ahead.
I mean, both of you guys are right, okay? I believe you both of you have very compelling points, and both of you are not wrong. But my opinion and takeaway from this, I am not as credible and knowledgeable about the sport of basketball as you two gentlemen are. But from an afar perspective, from a general fan perspective, all anybody really cared about was Golden State and Cleveland. I don't think really anybody was really maybe somebody as an outside average Joe fan was not seriously compelled by watching Toronto or Milwaukee, or just kind of those under low-key kind of series. That's just from a general fan perspective, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, we got the finals that we wanted. Everybody wanted Golden State and Cleveland. That's all we talked about for like 6-7 months was when Golden State and Cleveland will be here, the trilogy. That was all anybody really cared about. You two gentlemen who love the basketball, and it's your bread and butter. You eat, breathe, sleep, and you love it. For me, on the other hand, I love to watch it from a general fan perspective. It's not my most knowledgeable sport. But also, you guys pay close attention to the games. You said you have to pay close attention to the games. You pay close attention to the series, 4-2, 4-1, 4-0. For us, the general fan, in my opinion, all I cared about was Golden State, Cleveland. And I think a lot of people in the NBA community felt that way. That's just how I feel about it.
So that's why I'm saying it's an underrated postseason, because most people maybe are not watching everything. So when you look at it, the facts, when you look at the Cleveland Golden State, the numbers are the numbers, and there are just sweeps on sweeps. And then they judge the entire postseason off of it. And that is where I think it gets construed. Yeah. Where Skye, obviously your opinion, I respect it completely, and saying that makes total sense, and you have reasons to back it up. But what I don't like, and that's what bothered me, the way I couldn't rant in Israel when I was up there, is that all these people are saying how bad it is, but I guarantee you they haven't watched anything outside of those series.
I remember you texting me when you told me that. I remember that text.
Yeah, so that's why I was frustrated on that front.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Weston basically brought up everything I was about to say. I mean, it's like if you're going to dinner and you have like great appetizers, you're not really good, and you have a terrible main course, and it's sort of an incomplete meal. Like a lot of people were expecting a great main course in the Golden State and Cleveland series. Everybody got what they wanted. Everybody was saying that, okay, it's going to be, the trilogy to end all trilogies.
And that's all I wanted.
Yeah, but I would say most fans were disappointed by the result. Whether you were rooting for Cleveland or Golden State, you thought it was going to be much more competitive than it ended up being. Nobody thought it would just go 5 games and that was it.
I don't know. I was super entertained each game, though.
Really? There was only one competitive game, though.
But it was interesting until maybe the third or fourth. I remember because this was post our discussion, and then watching the finals and thinking about it more. I remember I paid attention to when the game actually got out of hand for the Cavs. At what point did the Golden State really get away? And it was really towards the end of the third.
In game one, especially.
During the third. Or it would be Golden State getting a big lead, then Cleveland etching back. Like, it was always interesting to me for the most part. Besides, I'm pretty sure... what was it? 2 games out of it.
The first 2.
Yeah. So here are the scores. Interesting. Right? I got the scores right in front of me. Game 1 was 113-91. Game 2 was 132-113. Then game 3, then it got closer, 118-113. That was when Golden State was up 3-0.
Yeah,
then Cleveland won 137-116, and then it was capped off 129-120.
Right. So to me, and also those first 2 games, I remember that that doesn't tell the entire story. Most of the game, it was pretty good, and then the Warriors got away, and that just happens. And yes, that's where I'll agree with you, where it's like, well, we kind of knew who was going to win.
The beginning of the second half, like it was like both of those first 2 games, the first half is close. But then you absolutely get dismantled in the second half. Like the Warriors just go on runs. I mean, obviously, it's sort of downplayed. I guess a lot of people were thinking that this was going to be a
7-game, right?
Yeah, a 7-game series. And the NBA community was largely, with the exception of people like Eliav who really enjoyed the series,
Just Eliav, right?
I said people who agree with Eliav.
I'm a wave of one.
Anyways,
people who agree with Eliav.
Yeah. So I mean, Skye, we really appreciate you taking time off Labor Day to come talk to us.
Of course.
But just one last thing, real quick. I just wanted to say, for me, I also correct me if I'm wrong. Did you not send a poll out that said like what was more entertaining, the Stanley Cup Finals or the NBA playoffs? Did you send out a poll like that?
I asked you that on Periscope.
That's right. You asked me that. That's right. And for me, look, I'm a hockey guy, okay, but. Honestly,
he's a hockey guy.
Hockey. That's Midwest. That's a Midwest accent kind of thing. So I'm watching the Stanley Cup Finals as closely as I did, and not as like closely as you guys watch the NBA Finals. Honestly, my answer is the NBA playoffs were more entertaining than the Stanley Cup Finals, and that's because, but that's also because of the kind of style that both teams are playing, like the way Nashville was playing, the way Pittsburgh was playing, and at the end of the day, both teams put great fights out, put up great fights in a Stanley Cup Finals. It's all about grit, nit, and spit, and everything. But at the end of the day, the NBA Finals, it was just because of the fact that the NBA Finals were so large of a seismic proportions of epic proportions.
Yeah, and the problem is that the predictability of it, like with the NFL, like you're going to get into your NFL predictions later on.
Thanks for the plug, by the way.
Yeah, I'm guessing like nobody else. I'm guessing not many. Like the three of you have your predictions. I'm guessing almost like very rarely. Like, are all of you gonna have like the same Super Bowl matchup?
Well, that's
probably
different.
not.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's smart to
but
say.
everybody, if you take like a list of like 100 NBA fans. 90% of them, or possibly more like 95% of them, are going to say it's Golden State Cleveland in the finals.
Well, that's fine, but then you can say that there's a one and done game. That you have one good game.
it's like,
you never know. It's way less predictable than a 7-game series where the best team almost always wins. But you know what? This has been a good debate.
This has been really good.
I think
And so Skye,
you can pick your side. Tweet at us. Who
tweet
won.
at us. Call in next
Team
segment. But if
Eliav or Team Skye.
I'm expecting,
or just Team Weston and completely out of the picture.
I'm expecting to lose, but I'm about it. Let's get it.
Yes. Skye Merida.
Underdogs all day.
Skye, appreciate you, bro. I mean,
Thank you,
no
man.
one
Thank
needs to
you.
question your NBA knowledge. You got a bright future ahead of you, okay, man?
All right. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, bro.